First of all, know that forms are linked to your tables. In other words, you're going to find the same fields in your forms as you will in your table. And this form here, customers form, is based on my customers table. Let me go ahead and double click and show you what a form looks like here. It's a very plain and simple form where I can go ahead and enter in new records or view all the records I have in my table. In fact, you can see here I have the customer ID, the customer name. They're the same fields that I have when I double click and open up my customers table. And the whole purpose again is to be able to have a different format to enter in your data, not just the table. I mean, you could say, look, I don't want a form, why not just use this? Well, when I go back to the customer form, you got a little bit more control. Where in the table it's from left to right, right? And not only that, but when you look at the table and you want to see the fax number, you can't see it. You have to actually scroll over. So let me scroll back here and go back to the customers form, and I can see my fax number right here. I can control where I place these fields here. And again, it's linked, so any changes I make here, it's automatically going to update the table. It's just a mask for your table where you can actually have control over the fields and where you place them, and thereby control the user's input and what they're going to input first. Think of it this way: when you do your shopping online, you don't see, a table format like this where you enter left to right, do you? You have something that looks like this. You have the customer's information, they ask for it at the top, their address, and then down at the bottom, like credit card information, entering that in. And you can move these fields all over this palette here of this form. And in addition to that, if you have a bunch of fields with numbers, you can actually add another field and calculate those numbers there within the form here. So you can play off of other fields here. For right now, let's just get comfortable with the form. First of all, you can see down at the bottom in the record navigation bar, I'm on record 1 of 14. If I go back to the table, customers table, again, it's all linked. It's just pulling everything from the customers table into the form. And you can see down below, well, that's not right. I mean, let me click up above, because that's a blank record. And you can see it's 14 of 14 I'm in, or when I click in the first record, it's 1 of 14. In other words, we have a total of 14 records. That's what the form should say, 14 records, because it's pulling the data right from the customer's table. So if I want to go to the second record, you have these little navigation buttons here. Click on the next record button, next record, or click on the previous record. Or the outer navigation buttons, when you click on, takes me to the very last record, which is 14 of 14, or to the very first record, 1 of 14. And if I need to get to a particular record, like let's say record 5, just come in here and click in this field and delete whatever's in there, and then type in number 5 and hit enter, and it takes me right to record 5 of 14. And again, keep in mind that if you make any changes in this form, like changing the customer ID, the phone number, it'll actually update that record in the table. Because remember, this is just a front view for our table here, a different way of looking at our table. It links every field up to all the fields within the customer's table. Not only can you click in the fields, but you can also use the tab key. So I'm in the phone field. When I hit tab, it goes over to the fax field. When I hit tab again, it comes down to the address. If you hold down the shift key and hit tab, it goes backwards. Tab to go forwards, shift tab to go backwards. I'll show you later on how to control when you hit the tab key what field is next. In other words, I could say if I'm up here and I hit the tab key, it zips right down to the address. Doesn't make sense, but I'm trying to make a point. You can control the user's tab key. How about finding a record? For example, let's say I want to be able to find any clients from the state of Montana. I can come down here in the state field, click in it, and then come up on the home tab to the find group and click on the find button. It pops up. And here's the last record I was searching for. It remembers New York. But if I want to find Montana, I can just come in here and delete it, type in MT, and then where is it looking? It's looking in the state field. When you click on the drop down arrow, the only other choice you have is the whole form, all the fields in the form. Of course, if I clicked in the city and I clicked on the find button, it actually have city here and then also the whole form, all the fields within the form. So right now I'm in the state field. I type in MT, I go ahead and click find next. Finds Montana, takes me to record 2 of 14. I click find next, doesn't find anymore. I click OK. Let me show you a shortcut here. I'm going to click cancel. Let me go to a different record like Utah. You can cut your steps down by typing in the word Utah just by actually selecting it, clicking and dragging it. Once you select the letters, the text, the numbers within the field, and you click the find button, notice how it pulls right in so you don't have to type it. Well, there's your shortcut. Click cancel. And let's say I want to add a new record. Well, to add a new record, just come down here to the record navigation bar and click on that very first button. When you hover over it, it says new blank record. Click on it. It takes me to record 15 of 15. Well, we had 14 records, so sequentially the next record is a blank record would be 15. First of all, I want to enter in the customer ID. Now, I don't know if you recall, but when we created these tables, the customer ID was attached to a primary key, meaning that there can be no duplicates within this field. So for example, I click on the customers table, I have all these customer IDs. I better pick one that has not already been chosen here for a record. In fact, when it comes to the customer ID, you might tell me, well, why not just go ahead and have an auto number? In other words, instead of trying to remember what customer ID I would enter in next, why not just assign this field an auto number, so sequentially when I create a new record, it'll automatically put in a new number for me. So it automatically put in number 15. Well, you could do that. However, some companies decide that they like using unique IDs. For example, I could say that in the 31,000 series here, that any customer or client who's within that series are my largest clients, the ones who I would do big marketing campaigns to. If they're in the 32,000 series, not as important. Maybe they're not earning that much money, so the frequency of my marketing to them would be a lot less. So for whatever reason, how you identify your clients, whether you want just it sequentially numbered, auto number 1, 2, 3, or you have some actual code that's tied to these IDs or unique IDs. The whole point being that this is a primary key field and I can't leave it blank or have any duplicates. So I come back to the customers form. In fact, I'll leave it blank and let's see what happens when I try to save it, because remember, we can't have any blanks. Let's see what happens in the form. I hit the tab key, I come to the customer name. Let's go ahead and type in. And then the phone number, the moment I start typing, it actually adds the mask, so it shows me the parentheses, so I know I'm entering in the area code first. Now this is my last field. If I hit the tab key, it's going to automatically save this record for me, but because I don't have anything in the customer ID, it's going to give me an error warning. I want you to notice in the upper left hand corner, you see that little pencil where it's writing. If you recall in the earlier training videos when we started entering in records in the customer table, for each record, as long as we were entering in data and we haven't saved it, it gave me a little pencil telling me that it hasn't been saved yet. Now there's a couple ways I can save it. If I hit the tab key again, it's going to save the record, but it's also going to bump me to a new record in case if I need to enter a new client or customer here. Or I can hold down the shift key and hit enter. It keeps the client here, but it saves it. Or I can just go ahead and click back and move on to a previous record. Well, let's see what happens when I hit the tab key. Again, the primary key or index cannot be a null or an empty value, so click OK. And I think I can enter in 32800 and hit the tab key, hold down the shift key and hit enter. And notice my pencil disappears to tell me that the record has been saved. So now I have 15 records. Well, this is linked to the table, so Bubba Gump, our new customer, should be in the table. Let me click on the customers table and he's not here. Well, the reason why is because anytime you leave a table open and you're entering in new records, it needs to be refreshed. So you could close out and open it back up and he'd be there, or just come up here on the Home tab in the Records group and click Refresh. There he comes. He populates down below Bubba Gump. Okay, back to our form here. Now when it comes to designing this form or creating it, like the table, it has a design view. So you can actually move these fields around, okay? It also has what's called a layout view. It's new to 2007. In previous versions of Access 2003 and XP, didn't have a layout view, but it has one here. And I want to show you the difference between the two real quick, and then we'll call it good for this video. So I can right click on the tab here, and you can see there's design and layout. First, layout view. When I click on that, you can see up here that I get my related contextual tabs, formatting and arranging. In other words, these fields are now movable. I can click and drag these fields around. Also, I can change the font size of the fields and change the font type. Also add bold. Click on bold, see it bolds it up. I'll click on bold to unbold it. So there's the Format tab. Here's the Arrange tab, where I can go ahead and put in pictures or objects and arrange them to bring them to the front, in front of some objects, or send it behind the objects. When I'm talking about objects, you can actually put pictures in here. Okay. Now the difference between the layout, and the layout's just a quick fix to get your fields moved around and not too much detail, or at least not as much detail as you can get into within the design view. So let me right click and change it now to design. Now design gets a little bit more in depth. I mean, this is where it gets more in a perfectionist type mode. I mean, you've got your grid down below where you can actually start lining up next to these dots, your fields here, or what they call controls. Anytime that you have a field that brings in data from a table or is not a static where it updates constantly, like the customer ID, again, that's called a control. And of course, the box next to it is called the label, because it labels the control. Because if we didn't have any labels, we deleted all these, and we clicked on the view button to go back to the form view, I wouldn't know what this field is if I deleted these labels here. Okay, so I'm going to click on the drop down view and go back to design view. In addition, up here you have the contextual related tabs to this view here. You have Design and Arrange, and you notice that they have the B for Bold button, just like in the layout view. You can change the font size, the color, things like that. But in addition to that, what you can do even more in the Design view is that you can actually add buttons. A form button that can actually close your form, open your form, or even open up another form with a related record to the current record that you could be viewing at that time when you're in, of course, the form view. You have additional controls. You could add pictures. You could also add checkboxes and radio options for them to choose from. Even drop-down list or menus. Boy, you've got a lot of options here in the Design view, in the Controls group, than you do in the Layout. Layout's just something to quickly, like it is, the operative word being layout, moving things around. Where in the Design view, you can add more controls than just your default fields that you pull out from the table here, the Customers table. So the purpose of this is just to get you introduced to the Design view and the Layout view, okay? So you know it's there. We'll cover this a little bit later on, and I actually have a training video here, at least in level 1, where you can start moving some of these fields around and working in Design view with your form, setting it up in a way that's pleasing to you and how you want to control the user's input. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.